Welcome. This is NSA 101 Hands-On Workshop for Washington Notaries, presenting loan documents to clients at the signing table. And we're set for 4 hours today. This is the first workshop that I'm holding like this, so we may find it may be exactly the amount of time we need. It may be less than the amount of time, or we may need a lot more. Obviously, we don't have the turnout that we have because of the COVID-19 virus, but that's okay. So we've got Tim from Videoland Productions who's recording. He's going to focus on the documents mainly, and my voice, and will not record any of the audience. Okay. So let's go through the overview. So the purpose of the workshop is to just bridge a gap. This doesn't automatically make you a notary signing agent. It's just to bridge a gap between any online training or self-study you may have done and your actual first signing with your client. I'm hearing an echo or some feedback. Are you hearing an echo?
A little bit, but it's not distracting.
Okay.
I just figured it was the acoustics of the room.
Okay. He's got a microphone on me, and
I think it's just your voice coming out of the projector speaker. If
Oh,
I'm not mistaken.
okay.
I think that's all that is.
All right, then I'm not going to worry
I'm
about
hearing
it.
it real clean.
I'm not going to worry about it. Okay. Okay, so we're here to just bridge a gap between any online training you've received or self-study and your actual real signing. So we're going to go around and do introductions. Hi, I'm Carmen. I'm your workshop leader. We're going to talk about individual goals that you may have for the workshop. Operating rules, I do have handouts for you. We're going to discuss your role as a notary signing agent. Make sure you have I want you to come away with a really good understanding of what your job will be as a notary signing agent. We'll discuss some of the Washington notary laws as they pertain to the notary signing agent, because we're not going to go through every one of them one by one, but I do want to call out some of the ones that I think are really important or that are different. Your role as a notary public sometimes is different. Your role as a notary signing agent. So there's a couple of laws that I want to call out. We're going to go through some of the NSA ethics and code of conduct, and we're obviously going to handle some sample loan documents together. We're going to learn what to say at the signing table, what you can say, what you can't say. There's notary do's and don'ts for sure. And we were going to do some learn by doing and do some role play. And because of the COVID-19, we are limited. We're going to be having to approach that role play and interaction differently than what I normally would have had in mind. I would have had everybody break up into pairs and do that. But we want to maintain a distance. We're refraining from handshaking and all that. And then at the end of the workshop, I want to encourage questions throughout, and I'll try to make a space for that. But at the end of the workshop, I want to circle back, and I would normally have a round robin where people can go around and ask questions that they feel may not have been answered during the workshop, or if they have any stories or comments or remarks that they want to make, and that's what I would normally do. The assumptions for the workshop is that you're already a Washington State Notary. And it's okay, some people who had signed up had not gone through the full process, but they were prepared. It was in the process. The state is behind in their applications, and so they had already submitted the application and had read through. But the assumption is that you're already a Washington State Notary. I do have a couple of recommendations for books that I listed. The first one is the this is the Notary Signing Agent Certification Study Guide. And it's what I used. There are lots of books out there, but these are just a couple that I recommend. The second one is the Loan Document Source Book, and that's also from the National Notary Association. And the ISBN numbers I've written down there for you. They're right there. They've got both the ISBN numbers.
Sweet. Okay.
So you can plug that in. Okay. Critical documents in a loan package. So I've identified several here, and these are generally accepted as your critical documents, but I want to have you put a star next to some of these. because these are the ones we're going to call out when we go through the loan package itself. We're going to put a tab at the top of the page so that when you're at a signing, sometimes the client will hit you right off the bat with questions. And so I want to have you tab some of these documents so you're not digging through a pile of 250 pages loan documents looking to try and answer their questions, so that you can proceed with the loan signing. And so first one I want to have you put a star next to is the closing disclosure. Okay? 99% of the questions that a signer has can be answered typically within that closing disclosure. The second one is the promissory note, or it's sometimes just referred to as the note. And the note is the written promise to pay. The next one below that, the deed, put a star next to that one. So you've got the closing disclosure, promissory note, and the deed are starred. The next one is the notice of right to cancel. Just put a star next to that one. And then below that is the first payment letter. Put a star next to that one, okay? So we're going to come back to that. So pre-workshop, I asked for you to read these documents, items 1 through 4. Number 1, the Washington Notary Handbook. If you're already if you're already a notary public, you're vastly familiar with that book because you had to have reviewed it in order to become a notary. If not, then anyone who's still in the process of going through that or is still deciding to become a notary, that's ground zero for them. They're going to start there. So the Washington State Notary Handbook, and then number 2, the National Notary Association Public Code of Professional Responsibility 2020. So that one just came out in January, and I was really excited to see it. I would have liked to have had that when I started. But those two, 1 and 2, if you're just starting out in the notary game, that's your foundation. And so that's where you want to start. And then 3 and 4, the Notary Signing Agent Code of Conduct. Those are best practices. And it's generally speaking for the entire United States. Those are generally accepted practices. And their caveat is, if your own state law says something different, follow your state law. And the same goes here with this workshop. Anything that I say is based on my understanding, but I'm not an attorney. So if there's a question about what I'm suggesting, always follow the law. Then item 4 is the Notary Signing Agent Signing Presentation Guidelines. And those are basically help us to understand what we can say about the documents, because you're sitting down at a loan signing. You've got a stack of documents, loan documents. And we're not mortgage professionals, right? We're signing agents. That is our role, is a signing agent. So what can we say about these loan documents? What should we say? What are we permitted to say? And so that just kind of, those guidelines help, especially a beginning signing agent, know what to do. You can't just show up at a signing with a stack of documents and say, here, sign these and then hand them back to me. You know, there's so much more expected of us. And then what to bring with you. So you brought Post-it note arrows with you, I see. That's great. And a pad, pen to take notes. Operating rules, no audio or video, only because I'm recording this. I'm recording the workshop, so don't have any recording or audio, please. Of course, we're going to be respectful. Silence your cell phones, and that means shut off the sound. And if you need to take a text or answer a text, it's totally okay. Just do it, but just make sure it doesn't make the clickety-click sound. Just make sure the sound is turned off. We've got some snacks and beverages here. Feel free. If you don't care to enjoy our snacks, I totally understand, and you don't have to. But it felt weird because this is the beginning of this coronavirus concern, right? But it still feels weird to not shake hands when you're greeting somebody. It felt so strange.
Yeah.
And the urge to come up and greet you and shake your hand was so strong. But we have to fight that.
I understand.
So be willing to speak up and participate. Be willing to share your knowledge and your experience. Let's try to have some fun if we can. These are loan documents and laws we're dealing with. It is not riveting material. But I've tried to infuse some fun, some humor in the loan package itself.
Okay.
If you spy anything. If you see any funny names, it's just my attempt to be funny. If you brought business cards, great. The signing business can be a very isolating business. So especially if we're independent and we're mobile, some folks work in an office, so it's not an issue. But for the independent notary, for the independent signing agent, it can be an isolating business. And there's lots of, I just realized I'm pausing this right here. Okay. There's lots of online forums at our disposal, and they're all well and good, but sometimes they don't relate to Washington State. The rules are so different state to state. And so it doesn't hurt to have, some contacts who are in the business who you can pick up the phone and call. And obviously we can't disclose personal information about our clients with another notary, but we can generalize and we can say, hey, I've got this situation. And you could run it by. If it's a legal question, I can't answer it, but any other questions, if anybody wants to call me and pose a situation and ask what I would do, generally I'm probably going to tell you, what does Washington State law say, right? And then for me, if the Washington State law doesn't answer it, then I'm going to refer to my notary commission, I'm going to refer to the guidelines. Okay, so that's the, then at the end is post-workshop feedback and evaluation. Of course, anything you have to share about the workshop is important to me. Let me know if I've hit the nail on the head or if it's a total miss and you feel like it was a total waste of your time. Either way, I need to hear whatever feedback you have, and it's really important. Okay, so I know you very well. We had good conversation, Adriana. But do you have any questions about how we're going to approach the workshop today?
No.
Okay, and then you can say if you want, say your name and where you are in the signing process and what's your goal for the workshop.
So my name is Ayana, and my goal for the workshop is to glean as much information as I possibly can. I've had my commission since August or September. I've done absolutely nothing at all with it. I haven't even used my stamp except for just to see what it looked like. I got a sheet of paper and stamp.
Oh, okay.
So, and then I decided to be a signing agent. And so I went for it.
Okay.
And I have been getting assignment requests. I've been getting, notifications for different signings coming up. Nothing has been assigned yet. And so it's kind of playing with my emotions. I get excited when I get them, but then at the same time, I'm like, but March 21st hasn't happened yet, and I haven't been to class yet. So
Right. Well, and you want to get some practice just actually notarizing too.
Yes.
It's really good practice because that's the foundation is, performing, acknowledgments and witness signatures and jurats. So that's good that you have your commission though. That's an excellent place to be.
And I have attempted to get my name out there. Like and this was of course before the COVID-19, but I actually went to some nursing homes,
Okay.
assisted living facilities, and made myself known there and offered my services for whenever any of the residents needed anything. So I have been trying to market myself.
Okay.
I don't have any business cards yet because at that particular time, I wanted to wait for everything to come through
Sure.
with the NNA and
Sure.
what have you. And so I have not made that investment yet. But
Okay. Well, it's a great start though. It's a good place to be because some folks that were coming to the workshop hadn't even gotten their commission yet, and so at least you've got your commission. So you want to focus on getting getting some practice notarizing.
Yes.
So I'm going to have you turn the page over, Ayana. All right, turning the page, and I'm going to just see if this is in here. The typical loan process. And so this is just a general overview. I call it the 30,000-foot view. In fact, I created I was displeased with how this page turned out in printing, and so I've got a different one for you that I'm going to hand out. Let's see. So you don't have to know everything about the loan process. You don't. But you have to know where you fit in. Thanks, Julie. Handing out this second one here. You have to know where you fit in, and I'm just going to put this one here. This one is a little bit better. So step one, the borrower has got to get the application going, right? So there's a 4-step process, and there's processes within processes. And then there's iterations of these processes. And as a graphic, what I want you to come away with understanding is that this may be step one for us, the notary signing agent. We've got the assignment, now we're meeting with these borrowers. But I want you to know that they've been through a lot. Before we ever came into the picture, a lot has happened. And so just know where we fall in. And so we're down at step 4, closing, funding, and where it says docs signed and verified, and then verified docs returned. So that's us. We're receiving the documents from our hiring company. We are printing them out. Very rarely will a hiring company overnight mail you documents, but it's happened. I've had them before, and usually it's somebody that's independent. But 99.9% will be either emailed to you, or you go to their platform and you're downloading them from the platform. So your job it's not as simple as just a notary public, where your client already has the document, you're meeting them. So you have a different role as a signing agent. And so we get the documents and we take it to them, and that's basically our step 1, and then we've got other work to do. That could be step 50 for all we know. And I want you to understand that when you come in, when you call, you're calling to confirm your appointment, you may pick up an attitude with your buyer, or with your signers rather. And I want you to really hold in your mind not to hold anything, don't take anything personally, because like I said, this could be step 50 for your signers. We don't know how that process has been for them. If it's been smooth sailing the whole way and they're pleased and everything's good, they're going to be so happy to see you, so eager to see you. And you'll see it, you'll feel it in their voice. But sometimes if it's been a rigmarole for them, if they've been put through the ringer and they are stressed and they are frustrated, you may also pick up on that, and they may have some, it could be just a vibe you're getting, or it could be just, it's outright hostility towards you. But don't take that personally, because you become the face of whatever process they've been going through. Usually they've been dealing with people, the banks, the lenders, the title companies, all been online, either via email or via phone. And now they're meeting you for the first time. You are now the face of the process. So whatever attitude they have, either good, I hope it's always good, but if it is a negative attitude, just have some empathy for them, because they don't fully understand your role. They just see you as the face of the whole process that they've been through. And so I have identified here, what is our role? What is our role here as a signing agent? What are we responsible to do? Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to confirm the appointment with the borrowers. We've already entered a contract with the hiring company with them. We've settled on a price, and now our job, number 1, is to contact and confirm the appointment with the borrowers. And then we're going to follow the instructions by the signing company. So step 2, we receive the documents, however we receive it. It could be via mail, or we're either downloading it from their website, or they're emailing it to us. Now we've got to make sure these documents are printed correctly, and we've got to do quality control on those documents before we leave the house, before we leave for the signing. And we need to resolve any questions we might have about the documents before we leave the house as well. So if you're getting a document and you don't know what to do with it, or it looks like it's complicated and it's like the borrower is supposed to fill it out, I'll pick up the phone and I'll just say, what is expected? Are the borrowers going to know how to fill this out? And sometimes they'll say, oh, how did that document get in there? Oh, that shouldn't be in there. Thank you for catching that. Or they'll say, well, if the borrower has questions, they'll have to call the number. They should know. If they don't know, then they'll cross that bridge when they come to it. But you have to clear any questions in your mind about the documents. Or if something is obviously missing or is in poor quality, if they emailed you a document and it's gobbledygook on the screen and it's gobbledygook when you print it, that's an issue. They don't want to find out about it at the signing table, so you want to resolve any issues with the documents ahead of time. Our third job is to transport the documents. So we are a courier of some kind, right? Because we're required to transport documents safely from our house, from our office, to the signing location. And so, but by safely, I mean safely. I live in the Pacific Northwest. We've got lots of rain. So get in the habit of, I've got well, you can't see that. It's too dark. But what I've got is a binder. It's a plastic binder. It's legal size. I also have one that's letter size. Get the legal size because letter size will fit in this. And you never want to fold documents. But something like this to transport your documents is a professional thing to do. That way they're not flapping in the breeze. If you carry just a loose clip of documents and you drop them or they get wet or somebody sees them, then that's not treating your documents safely. Okay, now the most important thing, executing the documents. So when you execute the documents with your borrowers, you're verifying your signers' IDs, you're understanding, you need to verify their willingness and understanding in signing those loan documents. You're going to make the notary journals, your notary journal entry right off the bat. Don't start with loan documents. You want to start with your Washington State obligation, which is to document that in your journal, okay? You're going to explain the process to your borrowers. You're going to perform any necessary notarizations and then quality control check before departing the signing table. Because if you've made a mistake, the time to find out that you've made a mistake or missed a signing is not after you've left their house or left the table. You want to communicate with the hiring company, title company, or lender as instructed. Those are pretty obvious. And then the last thing is to return the documents as instructed by the hiring company and perform any post-signing instructions, because they may have some instructions, and it may be, we want you to fax this, or not fax it, scan. They may require scan backs, or they may require to send a picture of the ID ahead of time. So whatever instruction they give us, we want to follow that. And then at the bottom there, it says obey the law. Above and beyond anything that they instruct us to do, we're going to obey the law. So if they give us an instruction that does not jive with Washington State law, if they've asked us to notarize blank certificates or, extra certificates, obviously we're not going to do that. But we're going to always follow the law. Okay, and so questions at this point, Anna? Any questions at this point?
No, ma'am.
Okay, all right, good, we're doing good. So this is, like I said, it's just the 30,000-foot view. We're going to turn the page over to Washington State Notary. Are you moving the camera or do I need to slide it over?
We can slide it over.
Okay. How's that? Okay, so the next page I want you to just look at is that Washington State Notary Public Guide. These are free resources. So let's first talk about the anatomy of this spiral binder, okay? So you can see I've got it tabbed 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? Well, if you go to the front page, the outline, you see it says 1, 2, 3, 4. So item 1 is the Washington State Notary Handbook. Item 2 is the NNA Code of Conduct, Code of Professional Responsibility. 3 is the Signing Agent Code of Conduct, and 4 is the Washington State Signing Presentation Guidelines. And so I've got these tabbed out, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then behind number 1, I've printed the RCWs. Now those RCWs and the WACs are in the Code of Conduct, the Notary Public Handbook that the state puts out, but I wanted to have them separate because it's just easier access. So it's a duplication of what's already in the handbook. Okay. My point in identifying the anatomy of the spiral binder is I don't own any of it. I do not have the rights I'm not selling this to you, I've just printed it as a copy for your information, and these are all readily available online. So I just want to clarify that I do not own copyright to any of it. But it's valuable, and I thought about just printing separately, but in a workshop, we're dealing with so many loose pieces of paper anyways. I thought a spiral binder would simplify. That way you get a takeaway for the workshop anyways, knowing that these laws change all the time, and we're responsible for keeping up on it. So this is current as of right now, right here, right now. This, you know, if you wait 6 months down the road or a year down the road, obviously these rules and processes may have changed. Okay, so first page of this is the Washington State Notary Public Guide. And my reason for wanting to bring that to your attention is this is the Notary Commission. If we have questions, if there's something in their handbook that doesn't make sense to us, or we're not sure what to do, or we need clarification, that's who we go to. And I tell you, they've got an excellent website. I've never been let down by the Notary Commission. They're very busy right now, but they answer emails. And if you're lucky, and if you call and they pick up the phone right away, you're so lucky because they're so busy. Usually I end up leaving a message, but then they do return my call.
Okay.
So if there's any questions for us, we want to go to them. Okay, go to them first. If you have access to an attorney, that's in your office, that's great. I don't have access to an attorney, so I really rely on the commission.
Okay.
Okay, so let's turn the page over. And so the table of contents here, are we in? How are we doing? So, table of contents, let's just use this as talking points for this right now. So we're not going to really get into the licensing and renewal process, except for we're going to discuss qualifications. We're not going to discuss how to apply. Anything that has to do with notary, for electronic notary or electronic records, we're not going to discuss that because remote online notarization isn't yet in process, or it's not yet effective, rather. You can do electronic notarization, but everybody still has to be in person. But we're not covering even electronic notarizations. We're talking about wet signatures, face-to-face wet signatures. Okay. We're going to, let's see, how to notarize. Physical presence is very important for the signing agent. Identifying the signing parties, we're going to discuss that in just a second. Confirming the competency, willingness, and voluntariness of the signing party, that's still very important as a notary signing agent. We won't go into performing individual acts, but if you haven't performed notaries yet, on the Washington Notary website, they have a video that will walk you through step by step how to perform a notarization, and it's excellent. What I really appreciate about Washington State Notary Commission is like these training materials and their video are free. Other states, they sell them to you. It's like they have a certification process. Oh, and by the way, they also sell you the training materials that you need to have to take their test to then get licensed. So it's a little bit, a little bit of a racket. So for Washington State, it's pretty great that they offer to us for free. Okay, venue requirements. So venue requirements for us, we are notaries for state of Washington. So that means we're signing agents in the state of Washington. Venue for us is going to be anywhere in the state of Washington. State of Washington, county of, and then whatever county you're performing the notarization. Okay, we're going to skip past electronic notarial acts, specific acts. So let's talk about some of the specific acts that you do as a notary signing agent. Taking an acknowledgement, yes, we will do that. Witnessing or attesting a signature, yes. Administering an oath or affirmation, no, not generally as a signing agent, you would not do that. Taking a verification of an oath or affirmation, yes, absolutely, we will do that. Certifying or attesting a copy, no. We will bring 2 copies with us. We've got the set of documents we're going to give to the client for their information, and then we've got the set of documents that we are executing. So we're not certifying any copies there. So that wouldn't really apply as a signing agent. Certifying or noting a protesting, I think there's got to be a typo here, protesting a copy of a negotiable instrument. That's not even something I do as a basic signing agent because I don't work under an attorney. And so some people might, if you work in a law office, you might, but that's not something, maybe something you do as a notary public, definitely not something you'll do as a signing agent, okay? So that does not apply. Same with certifying whether an act or an event has occurred, generally not something we'll face as a signing agent, okay? All right, so we're gonna turn the page. We're gonna look at the frequently asked questions because they definitely apply. Is there a way to turn the volume down? Is it distracting for you, that echo? Okay. Okay, so let's go on. I'm gonna have you turn to let's go to page 9. Page 9. And let me go to page 9 here too. Is that okay? Okay, so we're at page 9, and it talks about how to notarize. And the 3 basic elements for how to notarize applies also for signing agent. We need to identify the signing party. We're going to confirm their competence, knowledge, and voluntariness. Obviously perform the notarial act. Right below that, put a star next to physical presence, okay? Because if you get an assignment for a loan signing for John and Jane Signer, husband and wife, and you show up and only Mr. Signer is there or only Mrs. Signer is there, you cannot proceed with that signing. All parties must be present. Physical presence, and they can't be over the phone. Mr. Signer's here in person and Mrs. Signer's on the phone. That's not going to fly. So physical presence is critical. And then let's look at identifying the signing party and put a star next to identifying, because this is where it's different between a notary public and a notary signing agent. Remember, we're talking about loan documents as a notary signing agent. And so as a notary public, you can do 3 ways. There's 3 ways to identify them. Identifying documents, which is their driver's license, passport, or a personal knowledge, you know them personally, or a credible witness. Someone you know knows that person, right? Well, that does not fly. You can't say, hey, Wells Fargo, hey, other bank, Mrs. Signer doesn't have any ID, but I know her, so she's good. That's not going to fly. We can't do that. And we can't rely on a friend of ours who knows that signer too. They must produce their identifying documents, and they'll even specify what documents they require, because this is it's the Patriot Act. We'll go into some more of that. It's Patriot Act because the lenders are required to identify the signers to make sure they're not engaging in any money laundering, number 1, or the funding of terrorist activities. So that's, if you put a star there, that's where it's really different. We cannot rely on personal knowledge. We cannot rely on credible witness. Okay. Let's turn the page over to, looking at page number 11 now. Page number 11. Confirming the competency, knowledge, and voluntariness of the signer. So this is a really important function, and you're doing this for the signer. You are doing this for also the lender, for the title company, because they may have been dealing with these signers, with these borrowers over the phone or via email, and now you are the eyes and ears of the title company, of the lender. And so they've got bulleted items here that, you know, these are red flags. If you show up and your signer is, you know, especially if it's husband and wife, and one of them appears to be under duress, you know, visible signs, crying, they're upset, they're reluctant, you know, we have to use our common sense. And so are they under duress? Does the person not read or understand the language of the documents that they're being required to sign? Are they intoxicated or under the influence of drugs? Do they appear to be mentally infirm? Are they underage? And you're going to know whether they're underage by looking at their license, first of all, because you will have done that right off the bat when you're filling out your notary journal. But these are all things that we're responsible for as a signing agent, and that is in in keeping with also, of course, the notary public job. Performing the notarial act, so put a star next to recording the act in the notarial journal, or highlight that one, because you want to do that right off the bat. You just get it out of the way, you're documenting it. It's an obligation we have to meet for the state of Washington. I'm going to turn the page over to the next page. We're looking at page 12 now. Page 12. Are we over? Is that okay? Okay, good. So, one and only journal. We can only keep one journal at a time. And if you lose your journal and you've got to start another, first of all, if you lose your journal, you're notifying your commission, the Washington State Notary Commission. They have to be told, okay? Now, if you lose the journal, you've notified the commission, and you've started a new journal, and then you suddenly find that old journal again, that's it. You can't go back to that journal. You're gonna keep using the new journal that you have, okay? But we're only supposed to have one journal at any given time, and they must be kept in our secured possession, right? And I brought this to show you. This is a lock box. And this is what I carry my notary stuff in. It's kind of a heavy box, but it's got everything in it. It's lockable. And by having that, I'm meeting state of Washington obligation. And this goes with me everywhere. I don't leave it in the car. It's with me. Wherever I am, that's where it's going to be. Or if you have yours in an office and it's locked, just as long as nobody else has access to it. If you lose your notary journal or your stamp, we're going to notify the commission right away. It's really important. Okay, so then what are we supposed to capture in the journal? And the date and time of the signing, obviously, a brief description of the document being signed and the act performed, the full name and address of the signing party's signatures, a brief description of how you identified the signing party. And so put a star next to the brief description, because how I was taught when I became a notary is we write down their driver's license number. If that's what they're presenting for identification, I was taught to, hey, well, that's what we write that down in the journal. And now with this new guidelines that the National Notary Association has put out, the new guidelines, the Code of Professional Responsibility 2020, they've decided that, hey, that's really not a good idea to be capturing personally identifying information about the signer in our journal. And so I looked at our Washington State law, and it doesn't say, actually, to capture the driver's license number. It says a brief description of how you identified the party. So I even emailed the Notary Commission to say, hey, this is my understanding, this is how I was taught. There's a new guideline that's come out that says we shouldn't be capturing this. How are we supposed to do this? How do you want us to do it? And they said, well, no, you don't have to. It's not required to capture the driver's license number.
Whether it's a driver's license or identification card.
Right, but they said you don't have to capture the number. And so what I issue is what I capture from their driver's license, for example, the name as it's on the driver's license, the address as it's on the driver's license. And if they're at a different location, I might put in the comment section, driver's license has old address, they currently live at, in the comments form, at whatever their current address is. And then I write down the issue date of the license and the expiration date, but not the license itself. And that covers our bases. We are meeting the requirements of the state of Washington, and we're meeting the recommendation by the National Notary Association, which is to not capture personally identifying information. So that's something I think we should pay attention to. The commission also told me that we are free to add anything we feel may be necessary, right? There are other things we can do. There's no law that prohibits it, but there is a law that talks about protecting personal information, right? Because remember that journal that you lost? Well, if you lost a journal and then, it's got all those personally identifying information of those signers in it. So that's just a new habit that I've just adopted. As soon as I read that new recommendation, boom, done. That's how I do it now. Okay, so let's go back, let's look on page 13, down at venue requirements. And just know that venue requirements is Washington State. We're a notary in Washington State. We therefore become signing agent in Washington State. So that means if you get a signing request for Oregon, no, we can't do it unless we're also licensed, et cetera, in Oregon. Everything that we do is going to be to the bounds of Washington State. Okay. All right, so at this point, we're going to go to page 19, the FAQs, page 19. Page 19, the FAQs. So you've already got your license, so it doesn't apply, but there are folks that were going to come that hadn't applied yet. And so the first FAQ is, what sort of things could disqualify my application? Will a DUI disqualify me? Should I report it? I always just say, don't not disclose it. If they're asking for something, if they're asking you a question and you omit it, that's lying by omission, and that's a form of dishonesty. So they're going to do what they're going to do. Obviously, if someone who's applying has prior convictions for theft and identity theft, the commission's probably going to rethink whether they should give you a commission or not. So, but don't, the important thing is to be honest always on your application. So I'm going to turn the page. Can I perform a notarization from just a copy of someone's driver's license or a matching signature? Well, the answer is no as a notary public, and it's certainly no as a signing agent. We need to hold that license, that whatever identifying document they're handing to us, we need to be able to say that we looked at it. Because if we're put on the stand to say, if something bad happens, and we're called, hey, Carmen Lane, Notary Public, what steps did you take to identify the signing party? I need to be able to tell them, well, Mr. Signer handed me his license, I looked at it, it appeared valid, So you can't be a photocopy, it needs to be the real deal. Should I keep copies of the documents I notarize for my own records? The answer is no as a notary public, and it's certainly no as a signing agent. Remember, these are loan documents. Think about your own loan if you did a refi. Think about how you would feel if you thought your signing agent had a copy of it just for kicks, was carrying it. That's a lot of personally identifying information. So the answer is no, certainly not. We are not going to do that. Can I charge for performing notarizations? Of course we can charge for performing notarizations. This is referring to a notary public, right? And they have rules. It's $10 per signature max that we can sign as a as a notary public. But keep in mind that as a notary signing agent, we're doing more than just notarizing. We are a courier of sorts, right? So we're doing document handling, and we're acting as a courier. So yes, we can definitely charge. And I want to talk more a little bit later. I've got another handout I'm going to give to you that talks about laws and charging. Am I required to perform a notarial act when someone requests one? Well, no. The answer is no as a notary public, and it's also no as a signing agent, because we're not required to accept every assignment that comes across our desk. Number one, we may have other plans, right? We may already be busy. So we have the right to say no, as long as we're saying no lawfully. We can't say no for discriminatory reasons, right? And then on the next page, talks the question, can I perform notarize I-9 employment forms, certificate of life forms, or other specific forms? So the answer is no. We don't deal with immigration as a notary public. We can't do it either as a signing agent. Is the state employee's notary journal public or private property? So if you work for Washington State and you're a notary, those are generally considered public, right? It's public information. But if you work for the state and then you're also doing notary signings on your own time, like after hours, maybe that's private, right? And so what they're, in this blurb here, they're talking about, you have one journal that you could keep only. So maybe you're doing your 9 to 5 notary, 9 to 5 notary
notarizations, and then maybe you're doing after-hour signing, so maybe you're filling up back to front for the after-hour stuff. But that answers the question of whether it's public or private. And then you know that Notario Publico, what is a Notario Publico and how does it relate to Notary Public Commission? So that Notario Publico implies that you have some legal skills that, that we don't. And so we just, as a rule, are never going to refer to ourselves as Notario Publico unless we're also an attorney, okay? The next page. Is there education requirement to get a Notary Public Commission? Well, no, there's not. There's no education requirement as a notary public. There's no testing requirement. There's no certification requirement. They want you to just basically submit an application, pay your bond, pay your fees, and if you pass their background check, you're getting a notary commission. Now, for a signing agent, the requirement is that you have to first have a notary commission. But state of Washington is like the Wild West. There's no certification testing requirement for notary public nor for signing agent. However, it's like you get this license, this notary commission, but then there's no further testing or certification requirement. So you can generally go on to do signings. But there's a lot of responsibility that comes with it, and personal liability that goes with it too. It could be civil and criminal potential liability we're talking about. So obviously it behooves us to get some training so that we can do our job correctly and competently. The next one, can I notarize a document for a spouse or family member? So not a good idea as a notary public, and definitely not. It's a no. I'm going to call it a big fat no as a signing agent, because we can't do anything that we may personally benefit from. So obviously not a spouse, but then I would caution anyone who considers doing a loan signing for a family member, because the appearance of impropriety. You want to avoid the appearance of impropriety. So refer them to your friend who is also a signing agent, but don't. Friends and family, keep business business, keep family family. And then notarial language. Can you? Yes, ma'am.
So on the notarizing for a spouse or family member, I do understand, especially when signing as a signing agent is a no-no. But from my understanding was you can't notarize a document if you yourself as the notary would have some benefit
Right.
from it.
Right.
But if there isn't a benefit, would I?
That's going to have to be your call. So the question is whether to perform notarization, a signing service. I'm talking about notary signing as a signing agent for a family member. Is that what you're asking? Or are you talking about just basic notary public?
Both.
So
If as long as
we have to follow Washington State law, right? So in here it says generally, that's your caveat. Generally, a notary public should not perform a notarial act for a spouse or family member. Okay, so it says generally. So they're not saying it's prohibited, but they're saying it's not a good idea. They're saying it's not a good idea because, hey, what if somebody then accuses you, another family member says, well, this isn't valid because Carmen did this notarization for Dad, but she unduly influenced him. It's just, you want to avoid any potential hassle down the road. It may be smooth sailing in the immediate moment. The issue becomes further down the road when something is, power of attorney is called into play or something like that. So state of Washington is telling us generally no, it's a bad idea. We want to follow the law. My recommendation, make it a policy that you don't do it. That way you don't put yourself in that position. But ultimately, whatever any notary or signing agent does is up to them. But my recommendation is avoid it. Another reason to avoid it is we're not allowed to give advice on how to fill out any of this stuff. And how easy is it for our family members to say, well, hey, Carmen, you know the answer to this. What should I choose? How should I fill this out? it's so easy. It's so easy to slip into that, from that gray area, where we were slipping from a gray area into the, no, this is red, we should not be doing this. But it's hard to tell our friends and family, it's hard not to help them, to give them advice that, because we want to help them. And so that you want to keep the business line, you know, keep business, business, keep family, family. That's my recommendation. And then can a notary, this is the next question. Oh, is that good? Are we, okay. Can a notary perform acts, notarial acts for documents or signing parties in other languages? I've never encountered this as a signing agent. State here is saying that it's not, there's nothing in state law that forbids it, but they have to be able to speak it, and part of it has to be in English too, because if you're notarizing something and it's all in Russian, how do you know what you're notarizing, right? So part of it has to be in English. Excuse me, and I've never encountered that as a signing agent, to be honest. Everything's in English. Okay, so let's go now to page 37, Prohibited Acts. Page 37, Prohibited Acts. So rather than trying to understand what all we can do as a signing agent, it's a much smaller field if you look at, well, what's prohibited? You know, what's not okay? So these are things that are not allowed. We're not allowed as an individual to assist in drafting legal records, give legal advice, or otherwise practice law. And as a signing agent, I'm going to throw into that financial. The word financial instead of legal, right? We can't do any of that stuff for our signers. We can't act as an immigration consultant or an expert on immigration matters, okay? Understood. We cannot represent anyone in a judicial or administrative proceeding, understood. Cannot receive compensation for performing any of those activities listed. And we cannot provide court reporting services. So those are all just it seems to me like if we can understand what's prohibited, know what's prohibited, rather than try to understand, well, what's allowed. So that I think it opens it up for a little bit easier understanding. And then item two, we're not going to engage in any false or deceptive advertising. And that's why, like at the front of this the front of the handout here, the spiral, at the bottom is my disclaimer that says, this workshop references NNA materials and SPW, the Signing Professional Work Group materials, but I'm not affiliated with either of them, and I don't own any of the materials. I'm also not a licensed financial, mortgage, title, or escrow, or real estate professional, or an attorney. I cannot provide financial or legal advice, or any opinions offered at this workshop are my own, and notaries are responsible for knowing and following the rules of their profession. And so, we're going to abide by the laws of the state of Washington. So we're not going to practice law unless we're also an attorney. There's a such thing as being an attorney and a notary, I guess. But if we're not, we're just not going to engage in practice of law. Okay, so then let's flip the page over. So you're starting out, right? So I'm on page 39. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm on page 38. Sorry, I'm on page 38. So there's a line here that talks about I'm not allowed to draft legal, so you see the quotation in the center of the paragraph. I'm not an attorney licensed, starting there. So when you develop your own website, maybe that's something you want to consider adding, for advertising, to let people know right off the bat, because sometimes the public, they don't know what a notary public does or what a signing agent does, but we can help them to understand by telling them what we're not. We are not this. If you're contacting me because you need assistance drafting these documents, I'm not the person for you. So that's it for that. So now, how are you doing? Do you want a coffee break? Are you doing okay? Okay, let's take a 5-minute break, and then we'll go to the Notary Public Code of Professional Responsibility next.